You're okay? All right. I guess since we can't see it, I didn't know. All right, we are here for our second work session on the 2020 budget. So we've received some information via email, but Mr. Presley, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. I guess this is, yeah, you can hear me okay?
Yep.
So I think you saw the email that was late Saturday, and I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that. There were some changes between, the email that you saw was the second draft. There were a few changes between the first draft, second draft. In fact, there were about $77,000 is what changed between those two drafts. And that had to do with some calculations that the accountant was doing. Some of it I don't quite understand and have not had a chance to talk with her this morning about that. But
There were a few cells in the first one that had zeros in it because she didn't have the data. I remember when I looked at that, so maybe she'd gotten the information that she needed for those.
okay, I'm sure that's probably part of it then. But anyway, $77,000. If you look on the screen, and I'm going to
Can you blow that up for
blow
us
this
again?
up for you there. And you can see this bottom line right here, and I'll highlight that. This bottom line, 622,711, that is a deficit of 622,000 if we included everything that's here in this column for the CIP. That's all in on the CIP. So as we work through this, you know, we can discuss these choices, options, priorities, and you know, I'm happy to plug in the numbers as we go and kind of see what that looks like. I sent you a draft of kind of my thoughts on the CIP.
This is the one where you highlighted certain areas.
And I had highlighted certain areas on there.
And I took that highlighting to indicate that those were the priority one projects.
In my judgment, yes.
Okay, yes.
And do we have a target?
That's kind of the way I am. This goes at it backwards from the way I'd like to look at it.
Well,
I'd
what
like to
I,
know how much cash we have, plus how much expense we've got to spend, then what is that balance? So that gives us a total, and then we can go in and take the raise that we decide on off of that. Then we know how much money we actually have. Am I looking at it?
Well, I just wanted to know what number we needed to get to, I mean, I agree with going through it and highlighting the, you know, plugging in the most essential and see where we end up.
I could,
Are you implying that we need a balanced budget?
Works at my house.
Now, I think from what Jennifer said, is as we went through these items that are on the CIP, if we decided to zero them out, that's
Okay.
going to automatically
It
adjust the balance. Was that your understanding,
That's
Danny?
what that.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And so if I take these, and now you can see that I've pasted the values over here
Right.
to the right, but I can zero these out. And you'll see that gives us a 0 at the bottom, and then now we have a $234,000 surplus.
That's the figure that I remembered from the last time we got
So,
together.
If I understand you correctly, you want to go this direction and then add things back.
And then
in.
add things back in, yes, which,
Madam Chair, one of the things I wanted to look at that final number, that's how it drives the AOB, the assessment amount for '23. And we talked about that a couple of times in the last month or two. But right now, every R1 home developed lot is paying $780. And there's probably people coming in the door right now to pay their fee for the year. That's got to be paid by today. And I would like to see that go down from 780. So this budget that we're working on the screen right now drives that amount because of the 6%. And I've been a little disappointed in, not in the city, but in the fact that we have not been able to really get together as a city and a BOC to figure out what are their priorities with their monies and what are our priorities with our monies, and how can we make Holiday Island last longer. So I won't preach on it today, but it's very important for me that when we form the city, the $500,000 that they said they probably could get from turnback funds that we were already paying, but now are getting, and the property tax and so forth, Carroll County, that would reduce the amount that we would have to charge the homeowners or the lot owners. So I think it's real important that we look at this budget to form 780 or something less than that. That would be my goal.
When do we talk about AOB? Is that part of this?
That's a good question.
I mean, is that, yeah, I mean, I'm new, so
Well,
when does that become part of the?
I'm not sure I totally understand that whole process because it's so convoluted. You want to talk a little bit about how that's decided?
Yes, ma'am. And one thing I would like to point out to the board is that this number here, 234,487, this is after we've taken out all of the CIP, so there's no CIP added in here. And that would be our, I guess you'd say, surplus.
And that actually jives. Last time, I wrote down at the bottom what that figure was going to be. It was 240K, and that's before we made the adjustment. So that really does, that jives with what we were looking at.
Here at the bottom right, near that number, you'll see that assumes 100% assessment collections. And I assure you that's not going to happen. Traditionally, and I've gone back and looked over, I think it was a 6-year period back to 2017, about 85% is what we collect. And so if you look near the top of this, you'll see a number here, this, and I'll highlight this as I'm discussing numbers. You can see this number here, 2.3 million. This is the amount of AOBs that we will bill. So if we collected 100%, it would be this number. 85% of that is like 2,011,000 and something. So just over $2 million. And that eats up this number.
Right there.
So essentially this number after you collect 85% is basically zero. Remaining for CIP. So,
If I can make a statement, I don't think that any capital expenditure should be done anywhere until we get the water system and the sewer system repaired and up to snuff. Those pressure reducer valves have got to be replaced. We've drug our feet, and it's costing us money. It's costing us a great deal of money. The dechlorination of the treatment plant, it's not something that's an option, it's an edict. We got to get those things done before we do anything else. I don't care about the rec center, I don't care about anything else. Those things have got to be done, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right, the problem is, we don't,
We don't,
if you just look at that, we don't have the money to do it. Any of that.
It's not an option.
Yeah, but.
That's not an option. That is an edict that it's got to be done by the health department. And these pressure reducer valves, they've been on the board. How long have we been playing? And we got 14 installed? That's not going to work.
We have our grant money
Oh,
we have applied for and have no reason to
yeah, but-
assume we won't get.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Well, it's my tax money and I'll take it.
Well, you know, that's all fine and dandy, but you can't wait till Santa Claus comes along. You got to get it done.
Yeah, I was telling Danny just the other day that until we know about that grant, it's almost like we have to make two budgets. One, if we get the grant, what would we do? And if we don't get the grant, what do we do? So I
Well,
feel like we're treading water right now.
We had a windfall with the tower.
Yeah.
We had a windfall with the auction. That windfall should be spent on infrastructure and infrastructure only. Get it done. We don't need a glorious rec center. We don't need that. They worked just fine. They worked all year out of the little pro shop. They can do it again, if have to. Then if we get the grant, Merry Christmas. But other than that, we've got to get those things fixed.
Madam Chair, I'm in agreement with Terry, and the selling of the land under the tower was wonderful. Did we get to check on that yet?
No, sir, any day now.
Okay,
In the mail.
great.
The check is in the.
Check's in the mail, right. But I complimented you before, and I want to do it again on this Purple Wave. Amazing amount of money that was sitting here, and people just love to buy that stuff, and we got a tremendous amount, $173,000. That money, the 625 and the 173, is what we should do for infrastructure, and then as we have other monies available, like the chair said, the grant, if we get that, then we can do the other things, but we don't know whether we're going to get the grant. We've been lucky with the 600,000 on State Line and Hawk Drive and so forth. But those were with the city. This one is not with the city, is it? It's by ours alone. It's us alone.
Correct,
Yeah.
it is through high school.
So I think the public expects us, I think some of the public members have erroneous information about the PRV valves and or other water issues, but there are some things that we can do. And we started talking about PRV valves when I was on the board before, and we only did a few. So whether we hire a company to come in and do it, if we've got the money and we've got this windfall, as we call it, I think we should go with that. And there's other areas that we can adjust and we can maneuver. But if we get the grant in December, we can add the budget. The budget can be amended. The budget can be changed at any time.
But for all those people who say we were slow in doing the PRD thing,
Yeah.
you can look at that clearly and see that it could have never been done in 1 year. The reason that they did it slowly is that's all the budget would absorb, and that's all that our staff could do.
That's the issue.
That's the thing. The staff only has a certain amount of time to block off for that. They couldn't handle more than that.
But now
And
we can-
really, right now, we don't have the money to replace PRVs, as much as I want that to be a priority.
Well, I think, we can grandstand this all day long and rehash, but there isn't anybody here that disagrees that the PRVs, all of them, need to be done in the next 12 months. And we need to be in compliance with the state of Arkansas's mandate on the dechlorinization of the wastewater. That money, if we all agree to do this, isn't going to come out of what we're talking about today.
Right,
It's going to come out of the special fund
right.
that was created by the district manager, from the fees for the cell tower and the purple wave sale. So we don't need to rehash that. Either we get the grant or we're going to pay for it that way.
Can I just add something into the mix? As a reminder to the board, the grant is for $1.4 million. We are on the hook for 1/4 of that, 25%, which is $350,000.
Yep.
Which is, I don't envision that being an issue, but we will have to have at least that amount set aside. But that grant is for an entire PRV replacement, just to finish the project at a cost of $280,000. It is also for the $750,000 for the UV treatment system at the wastewater plant, and rehab of well number 4 and well number 5, and reimbursement for the rehab on well number 1. That's what's involved in that grant. So it would be a huge
And didn't you
step
say that
forward.
we would know probably
December.
within 60 days?
December, yes, sir. That's what I was told.
So,
Bob, I'm in agreement with you, and we don't need a grandstand or go over for an hour. Let's just do what you just said. Let's pay for the PRV and the UV system out of monies that we already have in a separate fund. The The check is in the mail, it should be here within a week, $625,000. Let's just not even worry about that in this case.
Exactly.
We've got the money, let's do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Well,
I think everybody would be in
No.
agreement with that.
No, we're not in agreement. We're not in agreement.
Who's disagreeing?
Are we not in, are we in agreement?
The only thing that I'm gonna say is, if you combine the money from the one-time money from the sale and the cell tower, it's still not enough for those two items.
Well, that's what you got reserves for.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I know about hitting reserves. I just got hit heavily with co-pays,
Yeah, go pays.
so I know about that.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if we were to pay for all of this ourselves, then what stops the state from saying, well, you obviously didn't need our money?
Well, I wouldn't think we would do it until we find out the status of the
You have to
grant.
wait. You have to
Yeah,
wait.
we would wait.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, because-
in December isn't,
December is still this fiscal year.
Yeah, December is coming quickly,
Yes.
but I think everything should be put on hold until we get that, because that has got to be the priority of the HICID. That's what we are.
Okay. those
The
are-
HICID does not have anything to do with anything other than, should be the infrastructure of this city.
And we can use our windfall to clump it all together, to take care of part of that, as
Yes,
much as
it
we
is.
can with the money we have.
But
But as far as our CIP for the budget purposes, there are things that need to be done.
It's just delayed.
It's all, you put it off, and it's, you
yeah, you put
can't
it off
put it
and
off forever.
you
I mean, paint jobs,
you put it off and you get another rec center.
That's right.
that's right.
Yeah.
So that's the
Deferred
reason we
maintenance.
need
Yeah.
to separate the two questions. Go back to what we're here for today, which is to decide what our CIP projects are gonna be.
rec center debacle came about. All criticized for our failure to maintain our facilities, not doing diligence as far as the upkeep and inspection of our facilities, and that was correct. We let things go too long.
Yeah.
Well, but the
And
bottom
we
line
need to take
is,
care of the brick and mortar.
yeah, There's-
We don't need any fluff right now, but we do need to maintain our facilities.
I don't think there's any fluff in this budget.
No, there's not.
Well, and the rec center money is put aside. We've already budgeted a certain, up to, we have some money remaining in the budget for the rec center, so that's off. the
Well, we
table.
spent $100,000 of it and tearing it
I
down.
said- I said there's some remaining. I acknowledge that we've spent part of it, but
Yeah.
Danny, I want to go back to PRVs. Is there money in the budget now? Dan said that with his crew that he had, they couldn't do it. The money was there for them to do it, but they didn't have the manpower, woman power to get it done, right? In the past year or two,
That's correct. We budgeted for 5 in this current.
and they haven't been done.
Correct.
Okay. So now this budget would call for a company from out of Holiday Island to come in and do them. Is that right?
Correct.
So Dan's crew would have nothing to do with that.
At a cost of $280,000 roughly to do the entire process, the entire project.
Was there any possibility of his crew doing 1 or 2 and that amount going down a little bit?
If they're
I
coming,
guess it's
Michael.
possible.
transportation cost and.
Dan and I have that discussion every week. He comes in the door and I says, Dan, what's the status on the PRVs? And just, broken water lines and dealing with so many challenges with this infrastructure that,
So if we pass this budget that's on the screen now, most of the budget's on the screen, the 280 or so would be dedicated to a company to come in, do all the, how many are left to do? How many?
There is no PRV in that
It's-
budget.
That's a whole different thing, Ken. It has nothing to do with
It's just not in this budget.
It's not in this budget.
in fact, if I can move over here, it may be helpful to you to see, this is CIP. If that's large enough, I'll blow that up just a little bit for you.
Yeah.
I didn't mean on that page, particular page, but in the budget that we will pass, hopefully before December 8th or whatever.
This PRV replacement that's on this line
All right,
right here
okay,
is, $25,000 to do another 5.
okay.
A big PRV project is not listed here on the
But can you go to the
CIP.
bottom and see
Sure.
what is the total that's proposed?
Yes, ma'am. I think it was 857.
That's the total amount we need for current maintenance. It's
But-
gonna be deferred.
Let me clarify, Danny, you got 25,000 and is that for Dan's crew to do them? His cost of doing that?
That's correct.
But
And
he's-
that's really just a placeholder until we decide what our strategy is.
But he hasn't been able to do any in the last year, right?
Correct.
So that would, Ken, if we do what we're talking about, and, get a contractor to do them all, that would take that out of our CIP budget.
Okay. Well, that's why I said, let's do it, and it looks like we have to do it with the money, the special account, let's call it, the tower and the auction sale. Let's do the PRV and get that off the table, starting January 1st or whatever it would be.
But we wanna wait and see if the grant proposal, if we get a favorable decision on that, the money will be in that grant to do the PRVs. Then we don't have to pay
And
for
the
it.
chlorination.
It'll be paid and the dechlorination.
I do wonder about the implications of that. If we are waiting on the money and we go ahead and do the work, then it becomes a reimbursement. And that might change the terms of the grant, and I'm not sure if we would still get the money.
That wouldn't be smart, I don't
No, I don't
think.
think so.
Yeah,
But if we're gonna know whether the grant's gonna come through in December, that's fine. We're not gonna get anything done. I mean, there's deer season, the white bass will be running, something will come up that somebody can't do something about. But those things, it's got to be the priority. And if we're gonna know about the grant in December, fine, we'll know in December.
Okay, so let's work on this.
Okay, let's go back to the page where you zeroed out the CIP.
Okay.
All right, so
that's here
there's
and-
$234,000, but that does not include raises, is that right? Because
That is correct.
And so-
And here are the numbers for the
for the
raises.
raises.
If we, 3% raise for full-time employees,
Mhm.
excluding fire and assuming 100%, what did she say?
That's about
Oh, 100%
$27,000
assessment
difference.
collections, which, as I said, we know that's not gonna happen. The cost, and I broke this down, my numbers are pretty close to what to Jennifer had prepared here. If we do a COLA for 31 full-time employees at, our total wages and hours, it's about, I came up with a number of about $42,000. That's not too far where she's at there. And
Yeah,
then
that's the difference on the spreadsheet.
I'd like to make a comment on that, Madam Chair and Danny. I read in the paper last Sunday, Arkansas Democrat, that I think it was Bentonville, that gave everybody, it was either Bentonville or Fayetteville, one of the big ones over, because east of us. They gave 2% for everybody, and they gave 3% for those as a reward for like outstanding performance or above and beyond Call of Duty. We gave 3% last year to everybody. No differentiation as to whatever. They could have been there one day, they got 3%. They could have been there 20 years. They could be making $60,000 or they could be making $13 an hour. So I would be okay with going with that for one more year. That would be your second year of that proposal for a salary adjustment. But next year, I would like to see you do something, either a salary schedule, so everybody knows what they're gonna make one year after another, or raise the bottom, like Bob wanted to do, and I agree with him on our people that are working down in the street and in ditches and with backhoes, so forth. And make it more of an equitable salary schedule system. And just, everybody gets 3%. So in 4 years, everybody will get 12%. Now, I know that hardly even covers inflation, but I think there's a better way to run the salary system of Holiday Island.
Well, if you look at the second number in red, a 3% raise and a 14% bottom for part-timers would raise the guy on the street, his salary. But you gotta pay for it. Of course, the thing of it is, we've got to remember, we are no better than our employees. I don't want to have 2 missing employees in the road department when we need roads plowed in January. And it's hard to get employees, it's hard to keep employees. A lot of our employees need special kind of certification. We've got to pay them. They can go to we have people living on the island, drive to Rogers and drive to Fayetteville to work. I want them to stay here and be good employees for us. So I think it's critical that we take care of the employees.
Well, we've got one guy in the water department, he's been here 14 years, and he's gonna get 18 cents an hour. And the guy that just started last month in the water department, he's gonna get 18 cents an hour. Is that right?
I would doubt it,
Something like that.
but it'll be up to how
All right, go ahead.
I will say this, I noticed that they got the boom mower and turned it loose on the side of the road down here by the bridge, and that looks a lot better. The appearance of Holiday Island is lacking. It's definitely lacking, and that's because of people. But to get good people and keep good people, we're gonna have to pay for it. And I don't know,
We have advertised that position in roads for approximately 2 months. And I'm proud to say we do have one interview today, but that's the first one. And I was speaking with Mike and said we're probably going to have to advertise that at a higher rate.
And I signed the check just the other day for what that ad cost. It was like $500.
It's expensive.
It's expensive, those ads are.
I would really like to take a look at the ad and we shouldn't be advertising an hourly rate in our ad. We need to say that compensation based on experience. Leave it open, because we do pay different people different rates based on their experience. To just say we're hiring in the roads department, that can be a little intimidating and scare people off, I think.
We have changed that. We had that discussion. We changed that wording to something more specific and listing the job duties like mowing, light maintenance work, operating some heavy equipment. And I do think
Plowing
that.
snow in horrible conditions.
And there's also a qualifier in there that says, depending on experience,
Oh, good.
in terms
You
of
got
the
covered
pay
that.
rate.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend of those 2 raises? You know the salary structure better than we do. You know our employees better.
I would recommend a 3% for all full-time employees and a $14 minimum for the part-time employees, because we have, the vast majority of our part-time employees are making $12 an hour. And in today's economy, at almost 9% CPI, you can't make it.
I'm okay
So-
with that. Madam Chair, I'm okay with that. What Bob said is true, though. When you're hiring a new guy, he shouldn't get more, but we should raise it up about $12, that's for sure.
The cost of that is somewhere around $80,000 out of a, $4.3 million budget, a little more than that. This projected revenue, and then you've got revenue that goes into restricted funds. It's not depicted here, but.
So Danny, help us. And I think it sounds like there's pretty much universal agreement to do that. And we've already covered the infrastructure issue. We're gonna do that. How much extra money do we have to work with now as far as CIP to stay at the current 6% assessment level?
$153,171.
Okay.
Am I right?
Let's sharpen our pencils.
Well, are you working off the assumption that the surplus auction money that we have, plus the cell tower money, when you add those two together, you're looking at $798,000. So you're working off the assumption that we would use that amount or that money for the big projects, the PRVs, and our matching money if we get the grant.
Right.
What we would be left with is the 230.
No. If you're going, first of all, we need to decide about the raises.
Okay.
Because that's what makes a difference.
Okay, then you're correct. So if we did that, then we're left with 153,000, which is the number that you just gave.
Right.
And you are correct.
Right. And that's how much money you have to decide
Our
that you want
chairperson
to
is a quick learner.
allocate.
Yeah. So you are correct on that.
We need
So-
to figure out where we want to allocate this, and
Yep,
fortunately, some of these are, 7,000, 5,000, 10,000, so we can get some of them accomplished.
Madam Chair, I know we're not voting on each item, but if I were to vote, I would withdraw my concern, which is for next year, take a look at a little different way of rewarding superior performance and longevity at Holiday Island. And I would be fine with what we've got up in the spring now.
Well, I think to some degree, because Mr. Presley has gone in and made adjustments in salary to some of those people who needed adjustments, I think that's happening.
You're correct.
We're counting on him to make those salary adjustments for superior performance, for increased responsibility of duties, and that kind of thing. Am I not right about that?
I'm sorry, I was working with
That
this.
you've made some adjustments in salary to reward longevity and superior performance and increased responsibility? I know several
Yes.
times along the way you've talked about we needed to change this salary and change this one. So,
That is correct. But that's on a very limited basis. I think we've got about 5 or 6 key employees who have either very, very long tenure, they've taken on additional responsibilities, or they have certain licensure and things like that that are just critical to us that we literally could not do without that employee. And
yep.
so we try to take care of those. I was
Madam Chair, while Danny